الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم عبد الله ورسوله ارسله ربه بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. اما بعد فان اصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم ووسط القائلين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. I bear witness that there is none worthy of our worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the seal of the prophets and the final messenger to all of humanity. Whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, there is none to misguide, and whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leads to stray, there is none to guide aright. ما بعد اليوم إن شاء الله نتكلم باختصار عن موضوع مهم جدا، وهو من الأمور التي ينصلح بها حال الناس في الدنيا، وهي مسألة اللطافة ومراعاة خواطر الناس عند التعامل معهم والإحسان إليهم. تمام؟ هذا موضوع مهم جدا، وهذا الموضوع يكون بالكلام ومراعاة مشاعر الناس والإحسان إليهم. So today, inshallah, we'll talk about this topic. We spoke before about some of the reasons why a lot of people have problems in their lives, and we said that the two most important reasons are, number one, the priorities are messed up, and number two, that the people, they don't know their rights and they don't know their obligations. One of the reasons why people have problems in their lives, especially with their brothers and sisters, is that they don't know how to use their tongue. Okay? So this is why they have problems. They don't know the right thing. They don't have hikmah when they speak. They don't speak wisely. And you will see a lot of emphasis in the Quran and in the Sunnah on this particular topic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول في سورة الإسراء وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُوا الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنزَغُ بَيْنَهُمْ. So the basis for this concept of Latafa, speaking wisely and caring about people's feelings and emotions, is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Isra, Surah number 17. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet ﷺ, tell the believers to say what is best. Otherwise, shaitan would be spreading hostility between them. So it is there in the Quran. We read in the Sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ says that a good word is a sadaqah, is a charity. Watch your tongue. The tongue is the thing that leads people to Jahannam all the time. The hadith of Muaz is there, radiallahu anhu. The hadith are everywhere. Here in Canada, subhanAllah, in the West in general, they use euphemism all the time, in magaz, in ista'arat, وكذا. When they talk about something bad, they try to use nice words to convey something horrible in a very nice way. So say for example, if someone is talking to another and that other is a liar, they don't usually tell the person you are a liar. They usually say, well, you are not telling the truth. Why? Because they use nice words. And even they use it with haram things all the time. Riba, interest, they call it interest. Not usury, they call it interest because it's a beautiful name. When they talk about alcohol, they call it spirits. It's a good thing. I mean, the word is good. Again, this is just like putting lipstick on a pig. It will always be a pig. But they try to speak about things in a nice way. Boyfriend, girlfriend relationships, they are called fornication in Islam and in any other faith, but they call it, a relationship or friendship or whatever. Friendship, this is what they call it. Boyfriend, girlfriend relationship. So they use these things to talk about terrible things and they make them look nice. So what about good things in Islam? Well, we have more right to use nice words when we talk about them. I remember a long time ago I mentioned the story of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz when he was sick, and and this guy came to visit him. So Umar ibn Abdul was terribly sick. So the man asked him, what's your illness, what's your problem? He said, well, I have this illness. I don't know, cancer, I don't know, fever, something. He told him something. He said, ما سمعت أن أحد شفي منه قط. I never heard that anyone had this illness and ever recovered. My father died because of this, my uncle died, my neighbor, everybody is dying because of this. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, well, if you visit the sick, don't talk to them about the dead. And if you get out of here, you never come back. Okay? Because the words make a huge difference. There's this story, I mentioned it a long time ago. There was a king who had a vision, and he invited people to interpret the vision for him, told tafsir. So one of them said, well, he saw his teeth falling in the dream. So usually in the interpretation of the dreams, they say, well, somebody's going to die in the family. So the first man said, well, your family will die and you will die after them. So he said, kick him out. Then another scholar came and he said, well, you will live longer than your family. It's exactly the same thing, that his family will die first and he will die last. So he told him, you will live longer than any member of your family. It's exactly the same thing, but in a better way. So when we talk to people, we need to use this filter in our mouth, in our brains before we talk. And believe me, if you do this thing, you put a filter in your head or a filter in your mouth, then you're not going to say 85% of what you were planning to say. We read that the reason why we have 2 ears and 1 tongue is to listen twice as much as we speak. And you see the tongue is in prison actually. You see 2 gates, you see like 36 teeth, I don't know how many teeth you have. Gates after gates just to protect your tongue from talking nonsense or saying something that you might regret later. So they say, think about people's feelings and emotions when you talk to them. You don't talk to someone who is poor and you talk about your money in front of them because you're going to hurt their feelings. You visit someone in the hospital and you talk to them about the 300 push-ups you do. You're hurting their feelings. When you talk to someone who doesn't have kids and you start boasting about your children, what is that supposed to mean? If you talk to someone who just lost his father and you talk about how much you love your dad, what is that supposed to mean? You're hurting their feelings. And the Prophet ﷺ was very careful when he spoke to the Sahaba. He always said nice things about them. He always chose his words carefully, chose his words when he spoke to them. And he always lifted their morale. We read, for example, in the hadith in Sahih Tirmidhi, that Umar ibn Khattab decided to go for Umrah one time. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, لا تنسنا من صالح دعائك يا أخي. So the Prophet ﷺ said, brother, please don't forget to make dua for me. So Umar radiallahu anhu قال والله كلمة هي أحب إلي من الدنيا وما فيها. So Umar said, Wallahi, this request from the Prophet ﷺ, because who am I to make dua for him? But still, he made me feel important when he said, make dua for me, please, brother. So he made me feel very good about myself. You read in the story, في مسند ابن ماجه, مسند الإمام أحمد أيضا, أحد الصحابة سالم مولى أبي حذيفة. So he said, I was reading the Quran in the masjid one time and the Prophet ﷺ heard me. فقال له النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما سمعه وكان شابا سالم مولى أبي حذيفة كان شابا صغيرا شاب صغير كان يقرأ القرآن بصوت حسن فقال له النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الحمد لله الذي جعل في أمتي من هو مثله. وهو شاب صغير فقال يعني كان مبسوط خالص. So the Prophet ﷺ heard him recite the Quran in a beautiful voice, and he was a youth, he was young, a young man, reciting the Quran beautifully in the masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ listened to him, and when he was done, the Prophet ﷺ said, Alhamdulillah, that he made in my ummah someone like you. And he was a young man, so he made him feel important. He made him feel good about himself. You read in the seerah that Khalid ibn al-Walid accepted Islam because of one thing that the Prophet ﷺ said about him. Now imagine all the wars that he fought against Muslims in Uhud and in Badr. And you know what happened in Uhud? He was the reason why Muslims didn't win at Uhud. Circling the mountain because of the archers, you know the story. A few years later, someone told him that the Prophet ﷺ said about you this. He said, وَمَا مِثْلُ خَالِدٍ يعني في عقله وذكائه يجهل الإسلام وَلَوْ جَاءَنَا لَأَكْرَمْنَا. So he said that Khalid ibn Walid, although he was his enemy and they were fighting, he said Khalid ibn Walid is an honorable man and someone like him should not fail to realize the value of Islam, and if he ever comes to me, I will honor him. So he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he accepted Islam, just because he heard this word, and the story is there in the seerah. So speaking nicely to the people and caring about them and caring about their emotions. Also, the feelings of the people. Not scratching the dignity of someone and saying something terrible to them that will hurt their feelings and will make them feel miserable. There's this story we read about one of the ulama. He used to go to his neighbor every month and give him sadaqah. His neighbor was poor. So one month he forgot to give sadaqah to his neighbor. So the neighbor came, and it was the first time that the neighbor came to knock on his neighbor's door, this scholar, and asked for sadaqah. He said, well, I didn't have food for 2 days, so please give me something. So he gave him food, and this scholar started to cry. So his wife said, why are you crying? Because you already gave him sadaqah. He said, Wallahi, أبكي لأني تركته يسأل. He said, Wallah, I'm crying because I let him ask. I let him, lower himself and come and ask me. Layth أو قيس بن ثابت بن قيس رضي الله عنه كان من أغنياء المدينة. He was a very rich man, قيس بن سعد. He was a very rich man in Medina. He was a businessman. فمرض يوما وكان طبعا الناس مديونين له بأموال كثيرة. فمرض يوما فما جاءه أحد. ما فيش حد من الناس عاده وهو مريض. فسأل زوجته ليش الناس لم يأتوا لعيادته وأنت مريض؟ قالوا حياء من الديون التي عليه. فبعث مناديا في الشوارع يقول من كان عليه دين لقيس بن سعد فتركناه لله. فقالوا تكاثر الناس لعيادته حتى هدموا من السلم بتاع البيت وقع من كثرة الزوار. So Qais ibn Sa'd, he fell sick one day, and a lot of people in Medina, they owed him a lot of money. So when he fell sick, nobody came to visit him, to visit the sick. So he asked his wife, and it is a good thing to talk to your wife and ask her about things. Why is this happening? Why nobody is visiting me when I'm sick? So she said, because they owe you a lot of money, so they are ashamed to come to visit you because this will remind them of the money they owe you. So I said, okay. He sent someone to announce in the streets of Medina that whoever owes money to Qais ibn Sa'd, this money is forgiven, is waived. You don't have to pay me anything. They said that the people rushed to his house to visit him after the announcement. So many people went, so much so that the stairs of the house, they crumbled, they fell down because there were so many people. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى يعلمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمنا. نسأل الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله رحمة للعالمين. قالوا من كمل عقله حسن لفظه. If someone is intelligent, they have a perfect brain, a perfect mind, then they will say good things. Okay. We mentioned before the story of Abdullah ibn Rawaha in Ramadan. He was sitting with his wife one day and he started to cry. We're talking about the feelings and caring about people and sharing their emotions and their feelings. And the Prophet ﷺ did the same thing all the time. If someone died somewhere, he would visit them and he he will show his sorrow, and because he's standing by their side in difficult times. If there was a wedding, he was the first one to be there to congratulate them. So sharing people's feelings and emotions is a good thing. And it's a good thing that you feel that people appreciate what you do. It's a good thing that when you feel that people care about you, that you have people who stand by your side, people who support you in good times and in difficult times. So Abdullah ibn Rawaha was sitting one day, he was sick and he was sleeping on his wife's lap. He put his head on his wife's lap. So all of a sudden he started to cry. She said, well, and she started to cry too. She didn't ask him, why are you crying? She started to cry. So he said, do you know why I cried? She said, well, I don't know. He said, I cried because I remember this ayah in the Quran, وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَىٰ رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. That every single one of you will pass over Jahannam, the bridge. So I was not sure if I will make it safely to the other side or I will just fall in Jahannam. So this is why I cried. So he asked her, why did you cry? She said, I saw you crying, I started to cry. So these feelings and sharing the emotions between husband and wife are also good. And a lot of families are collapsing because of the lack of this. The guy is coming from work and he's miserable, and the wife, okay, we need to pay the bills, we need to do this. Why don't you buy a car for me like my neighbor's wife? And take it easy on the person. And the brothers do the same thing with their wives as well. Not caring, not being considerate of their emotions. Like they're asking them, you don't have to, you shouldn't talk to your mom, you shouldn't look after your family, you shouldn't help your whatever. Okay? And all these things that lead to the breaking of families. I remember the story, I'm going to conclude with this inshallah. One of the brothers was coming late in Ramadan. He works night shift in Ramadan and he finishes around Taraweeh time. So he went home and he was tired. So he said to his wife, would you please put the carpet for me because I want to pray before I sleep? So she said, well, Sharia says you have to go and pray Taraweeh in the masjid. Said, well, Sharia also says that I can marry up to 4 wives. So she said, do you like the carpet to be in the living room or the kitchen? Okay, caring about people and caring about emotions, and this will lead to happiness and harmony between Muslims, your friends, other Muslims, and also family members. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this quality. Inshallah, all the money collected today will go to our brothers and sisters in Kashmir. They were suffering from floods, they were having a difficult time, so please help them. The last announcement, inshallah, this Sunday, the 21st of September, the Muslim community is hosted by the Unitarian Church, which is a few blocks away. So we would like to go there and represent Islam. Some of our children will be saying nasheeds. I'm going to be giving a lecture about Islam. So please come and show your support. There are registrations outside for brothers and sisters, so please come and register and show your support. Jazakumullah khairan. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يعلمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمنا. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى في هذا اليوم العظيم المبارك اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا مكروبا إلا نفذت عنه ولا مديونا إلا سددت عنه يا رب العالمين. اللهم لا تدع لنا في هذا اليوم العظيم مريضا إلا شفيته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا مظلوما إلا نصرته ولا غالبا إلا قصمته. واغفر لهم المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins and to give us Jannah and to give us sincerity in everything we say and do. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the best in this life and the best in the life to come. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.